Welcome to the PolitPortal. On this channel you can expect a link between political problems and solutions. Many other channels deal with criticism of politics, but we offer you a solution for new hope. Let yourself be inspired and become part of our movement. So don't be surprised when I talk about we here. I mean all of us who want to work to create a new world that advances humanity while protecting nature. Look forward to videos and discussions in German and English. Subscribe to this channel to never miss new videos. Take the opportunity to treat yourself to some hope and confidence. Comments are very welcome here. And if you want to write something bad, please also leave a suggestion for a solution. Because what we are interested in here is what's good in you. For all those who just want to complain, go to all the other online platforms that frustrate people and turn them against each other. We take a different approach here. We invite you to join us in bringing hope to the world and to look forward to a better future, because we are all actively shaping it. This is how politics works in the new world. To start with, I have two pieces of good news for you. First, there are no intentionally evil groups of people, but people have adapted to a flawed system. But why is it flawed? Because all constitutions had to emerge quickly after a coup. It took me over 20 years, including a degree in political science. And that brings me to the second piece of good news. These flawed systems are of our own making. They are not laws of nature. So we can change everything at any time if we only want to. And behind me, you can see a picture of what this new world could look like. It's the cover of all my books, in which I describe the new world. The non-fiction book is called Handover of Power. And the novel is called Life in the New World. You can find them in stores everywhere. And the link below in the description. In each book, you will learn more about the 200-year plan for world peace, for economies, and a digital democracy. We would be delighted if you would share your hopes and ideas with us here afterwards. Therefore, the internet is a real gift. It enables everyone to get in touch with each other regardless of time and space. We can find the important problems together, develop the right solutions, and vote on them with millions of people. This is our digital approach, with which we want to go our own way. We always have a clear goal in mind, and that is democracy and world peace for all people in harmony with nature. Be a part of it. Follow the PolitPortal and get involved. We all look forward to seeing you. How should your future look like? Do you want war, poverty, environmental disasters, displacement? That's what our current policy is heading towards. One crisis chases the next. A conflagration is spreading around the world. And our politicians are trying to put it out with a watering can full of taxpayers' money. Nobody thinks ahead. The only thing that is thought ahead is how we leave our children even more dead. Every crisis then becomes more difficult to overcome. And let's be honest, we and the generations before us have created most of the crises ourselves out of greed and laziness. When was the last time you heard a vision in politics? But I mean a vision that lasts longer than 4 or 5 years. Most parties only think until the next election. They have no concepts for coming generations. On the contrary, they have only concepts for themselves and their election victory. After me, the deluge. That is the motto for decades in politics. And who has to pay for it? All of us. And that is getting worse day by day. But that is over now. Take your dissatisfaction and make something of it. Here comes a vision for the next 200 years. Take a look at it and join in. In the next video, you can find out more. You can find a summary in the first volume of the non-fiction series Handover of Power, or in the novel Life in the New World. Get in touch. Our vision. We want to create the United States of the world within about 200 years with peace, freedom and democratic self-determination for all people. We want to find majorities through voting and for minorities to be able to create niches where they do not disturb or harm anyone. We want to digitally network citizens in an intranet for democratic control so that humanity becomes a being capable of acting. Follow this channel so you don't miss future videos. If you want to know more, read the non-fiction book Handover of Power or the novel Life in the New World. If I ask you, what core values do parties or governments have? Can you think of anything then? Or is there nothing but selfishness, power plays, division and incitement? If there are core values in politics, then I ask you, why do we still have so many unemployed people? Why are children still starving? Why are people still being sent to war to be slaughtered? The developing countries are deliberately kept poor because they can produce so cheaply. Because you can import refugees from there like cattle. Except these people pay their own travel costs. And all because their own people are so dissatisfied that they don't want to have any more children. I don't want to live in a future like that. Do you? We only have this one life. I want politicians who have to adhere to core values or be banned from their profession. Take a look at my proposal for such core values in the next video or in the non-fiction series Handover of Power, especially in the derivation. And feel free to write your core values down below in the comments. Our core values. We believe that all people belong to the same species and are well adapted to different conditions in different ethnic groups, which must be preserved.
We believe that every person is unique, has the opportunity to achieve great things in their life, and can surpass themselves through political responsibility. We believe that democratic politics should bring joy because it can dispel suffering and resentment and resolve the contradiction between freedom and security.
Follow this channel so you don't miss future videos. If you want to know more, read the non-fiction book Handover of Power or the novel Life in the New World. Do you feel that our current policy is well thought out? Today, one country doesn't know what the others are doing. Sometimes they even work against each other. And after a handover of power, agreements are suddenly broken without any concept for the livelihoods that are destroyed as a result. An example. Imagine you want to travel to another country, emigrate, buy or sell goods there. You rent store space and buy goods. Suddenly, customs duties are levied. Suddenly, you are no longer allowed to sell or buy in the other country. Suddenly, trade routes are blocked. Suddenly, the price of transportation, energy, food doubles, and you are suddenly bankrupt, insolvent. How are you supposed to plan your future with all this back and forth? Run a business, start a family, build a house. And then you've made it, and the bureaucracy comes. Yes, fill out the application here and wait until it's approved. I'm not responsible for that. That takes 2 years. That's not possible. I think it's on. There is sand in the gears everywhere, and you're running your heels off. I'm so sick of it. What are we paying them for? When one party comes into power, it goes the one way. And when the other comes into power, it goes the other direction again. It can't go on like this. Watch our approaches in the next video. And if you like them, subscribe to the channel and read the non-fiction book Handover of Power, especially the summaries or the novel Life in the New World. And then you will get a well thought out overall concept.
Our approaches. We believe that democracy can become dynamic if it is digitalized and citizens can switch between direct, indirect, and representative forms. We believe that computers and the internet will enable humanity to learn to speak and to think and act together through multimedia democracy. We believe that entrepreneurial governance, which views citizens as consumers, producers, and owners, can be more profitable, economical, and innovative. We believe that an international union of states should gradually harmonize laws, authorities, and constitutions, first on a continental basis and then globally. We believe that barter economy, planned economy, social market economy, and free market economy complement each other in a circular economy and give citizens the choice between freedom and security.
Follow this channel so you don't miss future videos. If you want to know more, read the non-fiction book Handover of Power or the novel Life in the New World. Do you know how old the Constitution is in your country? Have you ever voted on it? Actually, citizens have to vote on their constitution if it is to be democratic. Actually, Citizens are supposed to use the Constitution to instruct politicians how to behave. Governance is not a wishful thinking process, but that is exactly what is happening. Politicians can break their promises, waste taxpayers' money, take forever, and in return increase their salaries every year and collect big pensions. But if the citizen makes a mistake, then it's down to business. False statement, tax evasion, missed deadline, wage cut, old age poverty, in the name of the people. Thank you. It can't stay like this. Where is the will of the people? Let's finally take our rights in our own hands. Let's write a constitution. Watch my proposal in the next video and tell me what else needs to be added or removed. Read the book Constitution in my non-fiction series Handover of Power. The main thing is that you join in.
Our Constitution. Together with the citizens, we want to create a democratic constitution that is tailored to international unification so that fundamental rights are standardized worldwide. We want to establish a state order in which citizens select their governments according to their suitability and flexibly switch between departments and regions. We want to define ways in which ministries can implement the will of the people together or with the citizens in the best possible way.
Follow this channel so you don't miss future videos. If you want to know more, read the non-fiction book Handover of Power or the novel Life in the New World. Do you feel good when you voted? I always feel like I've voted for the lesser of two evils. Every party has good proposals. One for jobs, the other for the environment, the next for education. And me? I can only choose one, sometimes two. So either good jobs, or good environment, or good education. That's nonsense. There's a flaw in the system. And then I vote for the one best proposal. And maybe the party will actually get into government. But I can't rely on the implementation of what I voted for. If the minister fails and breaks his election promises, there's nothing I can do. 4 more years like this. And can I punish him for it at the next election? No. After all, I voted for a party, not a minister. That can only go wrong. So many mistakes in the party system, in the electoral system, in the government system. But that's no wonder. The systems are all over 100 years old. The politicians adapt to the flawed system. That's why they make mistakes, not out of malice. I won't accuse them of that, but out of laziness, because they could change the system through legislation. And will the long-awaited update come? Not a chance. What we need is a new version of our state operating system. Take a look at my proposals for an update. The state organization is rethought and all flaws are fixed. Read the volume State Organization from the non-fiction series Handover of Power or my novel Life in the New World. And don't miss the next video, which films the proposed solutions. Our state organization.
We want a division of executive, legislative, judicial and mediating powers, in which the citizens decide which politicians should be responsible for what. We want to take account of voter fatigue or decisiveness by allowing citizens to opt for direct, indirect or representative democracy. We want one party for each department with any number of party wings and the possibility for citizens to lend their vote to party members. We want one government per department and moderation of the ministries involved in overarching projects. We want to set up quorums in which enough citizens can come together to support reforms and put them to the vote. We want to link the duration of politicians' terms of office and the validity of laws to quorums, so that good things last indefinitely and bad things pass away immediately. We want elections in which popular programs are selected first and suitable candidates are chosen after a public casting. We want legislative procedures that can be initiated by citizens and politicians, and where proposals are drawn up and put to the vote in a public talk show. We want federalism in which there is a municipal, national, continental and global level, and citizens vote on which level should be responsible for what. We want citizens to be able to report grievances and politicians to be brought before public committees of inquiry and regulate the state of emergency before it happens. We want a safe and peaceful transition from the old to this new political system, which we will adapt to local conditions and continuously coordinate with the population.
Follow this channel so you don't miss future videos. If you want to know more, read the non-fiction book Handover of Power or the novel Life in the New World. Virus, hacked, data stolen. Oh, tough luck. The criminals come from another country where your police can't go. And what happens when you go to the office? For a birth certificate, building application, registration at the land register, marriage contract, wills. Registration office. Open Tuesday to Thursday from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. Make an appointment beforehand. Please wait. Fill out the form on paper, please. Pay administrative fees. Pay the notary. What century do we actually live in? Today's bureaucracy is just a drag. We want to play World of Warcraft with DOS. Slow down. Crashed. Digitalization works differently, namely at the speed of light. I'll tell you how to do that in my book on digital affairs and in the next video. Watch it to be a part of it.
Our digitalization. We want a digital ministry that provides all ministries and citizens with IT so that they can network, manage, evaluate, inform and exchange information. We want a democratically controlled intranet that complements the internet when it comes to holding elections and votes or conducting contractual business. We want to protect digital data from unauthorized access, store it at the producer, and defend it against cyber attacks. We want to create a digital image of the country in real time, in which citizens can simulate future projects. We want to use computer programs to facilitate negotiations and computer games to make government control interactive. We want directories for all ministries in which they offer citizens their services and help for self-help.
Follow this channel so you don't miss future videos. If you want to know more, read the non-fiction book Handover of Power or the novel Life in the New World.
Did you get your daily dose of propaganda today? Has a journalist once again been scaring you with his opinion? Anyone who calls themselves a journalist sells their opinion as the truth, reports in a biased way, and then demands money for this information. Is not doing his job properly. Information looks different, namely as close to the truth as possible. And if a reporter then reports too critically or wants to report a truth that is too uncomfortable, you don't get to see it, but he gets to hear it. Oh, report rejected. That's not applicable on air. You won't be on camera anymore. From now on, you're on archive duty. Is this what free reporting looks like? Is this how you're supposed to find out the truth? Inform yourself? Why don't you ask the reporter what his boss on duty is doing right now? He rejects all contributions from the reporters who are not in line with the editor-in-chief's guidelines. It seems to me that the state media are carrying out the divide and rule order. The Romans are already familiar with this. When citizens are set against each other so that they don't take joint action against the government. You know it, maybe? Left against right, vaccinated against unvaccinated, war against peace. But the evil social networks create filter bubbles. It's all fake news. It's all nonsense. If you want the fourth power in the state to finally be governed democratically, read the volume Media from my non-fiction series Handover of Power, or watch the next video and join in. Otherwise, nothing will change. Our media. We want state and private media to be separate and to have to disclose their political stance to their consumers. We want to involve, educate and inform citizens with democratically run state broadcasters and monitor and publicize the work of the government. We want a fourth power in the state in which controversial decisions are made publicly and moderators interactively control the decision-making process. We want government television that reports on politicians' meetings, elections and laws, involves citizens and organizes mobile talk shows at demonstrations. We want local and national television whose content is determined by the citizens. We want news television that summarizes current affairs on a daily, weekly, monthly and annual basis. We want party television that works with ministries to film their work, programs and laws. We want surveillance television that visits government agencies unannounced or secretly and uncovers abuses. We want educational television that films knowledge, curricula and research results with schools and makes them accessible worldwide in a video encyclopedia. We want youth television that summarizes the content of state broadcasters in an understandable way and films topics relating to puberty and relationships.
Follow this channel so you don't miss future videos. If you want to know more, read the non-fiction book Handover of Power or the novel Life in the New World. Can you still make a good living from your work? Do you enjoy going to work? Can you really do what you've learned? Or does the bureaucratic paperwork keep you from working? Let's be honest, we all realize that inflation is eating away our wages and profits. That our products are breaking down faster and faster. Our agriculture is increasingly damaging our environment, our farmers, and our food. Food is expensive and the fields are bare in winter. No water or CO2 is stored. Global corporations that patent seeds or poison our soils are the ones making good money. We can't feed humanity like this in the future. There are also the unemployed and the shortage of skilled workers. Anyone looking for a job is unlikely to find it at the employment office. LinkedIn does a better job but doesn't cost us any taxpayers' money. Last but not least, let's take a look at the pension system. Old age poverty is a danger that threatens many senior citizens. And yet the young people of the future have to work longer and longer and receive less pension. There is still a lot of work ahead of us. Take a look at the proposed solutions. You will find them in the next video or in the volume Labor or in my novel Life in the New World. And if you like the suggestions, help to implement them.
Our work. We want 4 economic forms in one country that stabilize and complement each other as a circular system. We want a labor directory in which applicants and companies can describe and find each other. Products can be sold and companies can be managed automatically. We want companies that price waste disposal costs into their products and are subsidized by the Cartel Office for Innovations and penalized for market manipulation. We want employee protection that promotes fun and partnerships at work, settles disputes, and ensures healthy working conditions and fair pay. We want an administrative office that manages all government material and personnel, and a procurement office that provides all ministries with the goods they need. We want a company auditing agency that ensures that all companies adhere to their rules and that employees can contribute their ideas more easily. We want agriculture that promotes environmental protection thanks to permaculture and indoor farming, but costs less and produces more food. We want a financial sector that, thanks to state supervision and rating agencies, informs investors about risks and price trends. We want consumer protection that enables citizens to report defective products, have them technically and judicially inspected, and have standards labeled with quality seals. We want pensions that are spent in social villages, residential and care communities, cooperative retirement homes, or on cruise ships traveling the world.
Follow this channel so you don't miss future videos. If you want to know more, read the non-fiction book Handover of Power or the novel Life in the New World. Are you afraid of becoming unemployed? Today, our welfare system can't cope with mass unemployment. It costs far too much, and the recipients are kept in a state of dependency determined by others. You can't call that social welfare by any stretch of the imagination. Or are you perhaps an avowed communist? Did you like the fact that there was no unemployment in the Soviet Union? A lot certainly went wrong under the dictatorship of communism. No communist country in the world has managed to make people want to move there in droves. Not even the ultra-left in this country. Karl Marx would be turning in his grave if he saw what is being made of his system here. Nevertheless, we can see that there are many people who would like to live under communism. But then, they want everyone to have to live like that. And the majority don't want that. And that is precisely why communism currently exists only as a dictatorship. It doesn't have to be that way. Democratic communism is possible, but only if there are other forms of economy in a country. And not everyone has to become a communist. The next video and my book on the planned economy will tell you how to do this. Have a look.
Our planned economy. We want social villages spread across the country in which a democratically planned economy prevails, which serve as barracks in the event of war and otherwise utilize military equipment for social purposes. We want social services that are self-financing thanks to a planned economy and produce goods for ministries in return. We want to enable nationals in social emergencies to collect and preserve their assets immediately and demand entry fees and social corporate governance for volunteers. We want residents who manage their own coexistence at general assemblies and in the social directory and specialize in industries in various social villages. We want the unemployed to be able to work for each other so that they can support themselves and set up businesses with like-minded people. We want all residents to provide the basic services of housing, food, hygiene, clothing and state facilities in compulsory working hours. We want discarded goods to be recycled and fired workers to be retrained so that they can switch back to other economic forms. We want all residents to be able to work in the luxury sector during their free time in order to afford certain goods or realize business ideas. We want an amusement park, clubs, street festivals and a place of worship for all religions, where all residents can spend their leisure time together. We want residential buildings in which people with the same living situation live in shared flats, as well as a canteen and laundry for all residents. We want living and working with an initial trial period and the chance to change if you don't like it. We want a social card that residents can use to gain access to premises, pay and record their working hours. We want a democratic and digital vote on consumption and working hours that protects residents from deprivation and maximizes leisure time. We only want financial management via the People's Bank with a currency in labor hours which prices the time for training and creation for a service. We want the inhabitants to farm in their gardens and rooms and deliver the food, medicines and drugs produced to the canteen, kitchen or pharmacy. We want to enable research and development through paid studies and commissions or for inventions by residents and focus on biotechnology. We want foreign trade that does not trade with foreign countries and only with the domestic market if imports and exports are balanced and supplies are secure.
Follow this channel so you don't miss future videos. If you want to know more, read the non-fiction book Handover of Power or the novel Life in the New World. Do you think our market economy is social? I think it drives up non-wage labor costs, but offers employees no comparable benefits. Large corporations simply relocate their sites abroad to avoid these costs. But our small and medium-sized companies can't do that. And that's why our small and medium-sized businesses are dying. More and more people in a family have to go to work so that there is still enough money. And let's be honest, how many cooperatives are there here? Where is the socialism where the worker is also the owner? The unions think they represent the rights of the workers? But for decades we have had wages that have risen less than inflation. As soon as the collective agreement is concluded, prices are raised, so nobody can afford more. If you don't like that, watch the next video, or read my novel, or the book Social Market Economy, and decide yourself whether it's worth going on strike.
Our social market economy. We want companies of different sizes to support each other in solidarity in order to avoid delivery failures, insolvencies, undersupply or waste. We want democratic corporate governance that results in happier employees, no strikes and lower management costs. We want tax-financed compulsory insurance against illness, unemployment, supply shortages and economic downturns, as well as for parents, legal protection and pensions. We want cooperation between companies, state educational institutions and data centers to ensure stable economic power. We want tested quality standards for durable, environmentally, consumer and employee-friendly products and production methods. We want foreign trade that does not harm countries of origin and also guarantees domestic standards, wages and prices in foreign locations. We want a financial economy with a domestic currency and its own stock exchange, which strengthens both the purchasing power of the population and investments in companies. We want a real estate industry that provides for renovations, insurance, appraisals and low prices. We want agriculture in which small farmers organize themselves as cooperatives, offer subscriptions to end customers and receive helpers from the state at harvest time.
Follow this channel so you don't miss future videos. If you want to know more, read the non-fiction book Handover of Power or the novel Life in the New World.
Higher, faster, further, growth at any price, whatever the cost. The latest technology, the most money, preferably at the expense of nature or the next generation, because they can't defend themselves against it. Is that what you want? Or would you like to be in the forest? But then the forester comes and chases you away. Would you like to live without the internet? But then you'd be lonely. Would you like to live without money? But then you'd be poor. More and more people are getting burnout. Our meritocracy simply no longer offers us any opportunities to retreat. And the worst thing is that we are forgetting how to survive without money and technology. We chase after the latest post like junkies, eagerly awaiting the end of the month so that we can empty our bank account for new garbage. Our planet can't take much more of this.
And you? How much longer? Or are you ready for the island? I have a treehouse to offer. You will find out more in the next post. Or in the volume Barter Economy. Or in my novel Life in the New World. Have a look at it and feel safe.
Our barter economy. We want to use state forests and nature reserves as a habitat for people without jeopardizing the regrowth of the animals and plants there. We want 3 different comfort levels in which inhabitants live in a Stone Age, medieval or modern way and only use modern technology for light and heat. We want it to be possible to live without money and today's technology, without having to give up your assets. We want residents and businesses for commerce and trade who provide their services in return and document their word of honor via video. We want security forces, doctors and schools to be able to provide residents with mobile care and all services in the capital to be provided using modern methods.
Follow this channel so you don't miss future videos. If you want to know more, read the non-fiction book Handover of Power or the novel Life in the New World. Are you worried about the state making more and more rules for you? Wanting more and more of your money? More and more people are crying out for the state to redistribute. If you do more, you have to pay more. Laziness should be rewarded. Does that make sense? Or does the problem lie elsewhere? Perfect competition is not so perfect. The invisible hand of the market is not so invisible. Who is allowed to run a company, how, where and why is no longer so free. To all the turbo capitalists out there, land in sight. If you'd rather be free as a bird than live in a gilded cage, then I've got something for you. Take a look at the volume Free Market Economy or my novel Life in the New World and the next video.
Our free market economy. We want an economy with few state regulations and low taxes that is open to global trade, bears the risks and costs itself, and never charges them to the state or the environment. We want companies and individuals who can only purchase state services of their own choosing or do without them. We want to regulate labor, business, corporate and commercial law on a case-by-case basis in contracts and court rulings. We want international trade unions that can use industrial action and share purchases to strengthen the rights of workers and migrant workers in collective agreements. We want a financial economy with an international currency and barely regulated private stock exchanges and stock corporations.
Follow this channel so you don't miss future videos. If you want to know more, read the non-fiction book Handover of Power or the novel Life in the New World. Have you ever heard that the poor are getting poorer and the rich are getting richer? That's because there are people who only earn money with money and don't go to work every day. Others have to do that for them. You and me, for example. Public limited companies send their profits abroad as dividends, preferably to tax havens. So they neither spend their money here nor do they pay taxes on it here. That's why it's no longer enough for one person in the family to work. Both parents have to, or even the children. This is called a loss of purchasing power. It is also fueled by the fact that countries have debts. And you have to pay interest on debt. And you can guess where this interest goes. Exactly, abroad, and preferably in tax havens. But why don't the politicians do anything about it? I ask you, who is the debtor more dependent on his voters or on his creditor? Exactly, you've got it. If the politicians don't do what the investors want, they will send the country into bankruptcy by selling all their government bonds and not buying anymore. The politician loses everything: his job, his immunity, his salary, his pension. If politicians don't do what the voters want, their party only loses the election, nothing else. The so independent central banks usually leave key interest rates below the inflation rate. This means that your money is worth less than the interest you get on your savings. This is called expropriation. And your tax return? Have you done that yet? Complicated, isn't it? Yes, not everyone knows all the tax laws. But if you are rich enough, you can afford a tax consultant. And if not, well, then you will pay more tax. Oh, and you still have to do all the bookkeeping. Control over the distribution of tax money? Surely the politicians do that best. Do you think that's good? If not, watch the next video to see what you can do about it. And if you want to know it exactly, read the volume Finance of my non-fiction book Handover of Power. Be a part of it and don't get poor.
Our finances. We want a state budget that is debt-free and distributed by the population in an annual vote. We want a digitalized tax system that consists only of customs duties, value-added taxes, and corporate taxes in order to control the foreign trade balance, consumption, and profits. We want to finance debt reduction with taxes on inheritances, gifts, and property, and then abolish these taxes. We want a central bank with 4 issuing banks that ensure full employment and stable prices, because 4 currencies hedge each other against risks. We want a state-owned people's bank with interest-bearing accounts for individuals, generations, and companies, as well as stock exchanges for domestic companies and ideas. We want machine fees, half of which are invested in automation and the other half in an unconditional basic income, which is increasing.
Follow this channel so you don't miss future videos. If you want to know more, read the non-fiction book Handover of Power or the novel Life in the New World. Have you ever had an idea and wanted to bring it to the market? Yes? And why didn't you do it? Exactly, too complicated. And then there's the risk of it being stolen by a rich company. Here's an example. Once upon a time, there was a patent for recycling uranium. But do you know who bought the patent? Uranium manufacturers, because the competition would have ruined their business. They didn't care that the world was drowning in nuclear waste because of it. Maybe that sounds familiar to you now. The oil industry, automotive industry, energy companies. You know what I mean. Is that what good innovation policy looks like? I call it delaying innovation and carelessly killing future generations. And what does it look like at our universities? Research funding is not linked to success, but who has filled out the most forms. Examination procedures take years or even decades and eat up a large proportion of research funding. And we, taxpayers, we urgently need to invest in innovations that secure our food and energy supply. But nobody asks us. That's not how we make progress. This is not the way to achieve the progress we and the planet so urgently need. So join in and let's push for world firsts in politics. Let's create pressure to innovate because the new system is such faster, cheaper and more inventive than all the others. You can find out what the system can look like in the non-fiction book Handover of Power, in the volume on innovation, or in my novel Life in the New World. We are more, believe me.
Our innovation. We want to digitally facilitate the protection of inventions and their registration and enable the development of prototypes in innovation workshops. We want to show inventors, suitable researchers, property rights, sponsors, producers and customers, and support them through authorities, directories and television programs. We want to ask for and market suggestions for improvement from customers and employees, as well as successful company models. We want to create a mass of skilled labor that can invent and produce innovations at lightning speed by linking education, research and development. We want to implement innovations in large state-owned companies and replace taxpayers' money with monopoly profits until the patent protection expires.
Follow this channel so you don't miss future videos. If you want to know more, read the non-fiction book Handover of Power or the novel Life in the New World. Have you ever had exam nerves? Oh, we're tired in the morning at school. Oh. Our schools are not at all tailored to the needs of the pupils. If they were at least tailored to the needs of teachers or companies, but that's not the case either. Nobody is really satisfied with this school system. If the pupils were at least learning something, that would be understandable. But far from it. Theory far removed from practice, frontal teaching, exams non-stop, and grades for content that is forgotten the next day. Students are given timetable. Teachers are given a curriculum. Companies are given degrees. This is a thoroughly hierarchical system that has nothing to do with democracy. On the contrary, everyone involved is educated to immaturity. When frustration builds up, it is passed on from top down. Bullying and fights in schoolyards are the best proof of this. And for those who fail or stay behind, the chances are really bad. School dropouts are usually stuck in the lower wage sector and are usually at the mercy of bosses who patronize them in much the same way as teachers did back then. And then there are the evening schools, which cost a lot, are long journeys to get to or ruin every day off. The only thing that we are sure to get is a shortage of skilled workers and lost generations. If you want to know what you can do about it, watch the next video and read the book Education or the novel Life in the New World. Make yourself smart.
our education. We want teachers and learners who democratically manage their educational institution themselves, become researchers and developers together, and produce or realize inventions in collaboration. We want teachers who gain 10 years of professional experience in their subject during their teaching career and are assessed by students in surveys. We want learners who choose suitable teaching methods and decide for themselves when they want to learn which knowledge from the curriculum. We want curricula that are drawn up publicly by the Ministers for Education, Labor and Innovation and representatives from business associations and educational institutions. We want centralized performance records and final examinations that are created by the examination office and corrected and assessed by teachers who do not know the candidates. We want examinations that are offered to learners as paid contract work for companies and research institutes. We want a directory of knowledge so that we can learn parts of the knowledge available worldwide at any time and complete any degrees as a digital distance learning program. We want daycare centers where children decide whether they are looked after in themed rooms or in fixed groups. We want special schools for people with behavioral disorders, learning difficulties and the gifted, as well as special facilities for emergency care around the clock every day. We want primary schools with structured learning in the morning and playful learning in the afternoon. We want comprehensive and higher education institutions with freely selectable timetables, courses, examination types and degrees, as well as the option to repeat examinations as often as you like. We want every citizen to perform national service, which consists of 3 months of basic training in the military and people protection service and 9 months of work in non-profit or state enterprises. Follow this channel so you don't miss future videos. If you want to know more, read the non-fiction book Handover of Power or the novel Life in the New World.
Do you currently feel perfectly healthy? And if you go to the doctor and take the medicine he prescribes, will you get well and stay that way? If you have answered yes to all of these questions, I'd like to ask you if your doctor knows this too, or your pharmacist. Probably not. Unfortunately, no statistics are kept on this. But that's what's actually important. Knowing what cures, what only soothes, and what is just a money-making exercise. Unfortunately, our healthcare system has no concept for this. If we look at the health insurance companies, we also know why this is the case. There are hundreds of them. They all offer the same thing, and they can afford board members and buildings. But nobody gets well. No patient has ever seen one of these people. Does it have to be like this? I don't think so. Let's take a look at the healers. Hocus pocus, a globally here and an essence there. And people get well. All of them? Always? Nobody knows for sure. The pharmaceutical industry's clinical studies are accepted. But health insurance companies and many doctors often do not recognize healers as being of equal value, although some people get just as healthy there. It's a compulsory fee for a health insurance fund that you pay into, but you don't get to choose which treatment you can use your contributions for. And now, to a real source of money for the pharma industry. Pollution, noise, pesticides, hormones, food additives like pure sugar, salt or flavorings. We ingest all this and it makes us ill. But this is the only way we can remain good customers and continue to pay share of our income. And it seems necessary to us because we have to go to the doctor so often. And finally, a word about drugs. You take the poisons yourself and at least you still get something out of it. Sure, it also makes you ill if you overdo it. But what's really bad for everyone is that your addiction can make you so ill that you have to go to the doctor. If all insured people have to pay for you, then that's unfair. But what harms society much more than your intoxication is the cost of police operations and the crime caused by drug cartels. If you want your body to belong to you, and if you want it to stay healthy, watch the next video. Read the book Health from the non-fiction series Handover of Power, or the novel Life in the New World. Treat yourself.
Our health. We want to create a link between environmental protection and health in order to keep people and nature healthy with measurements, guidelines and measures. We want a health directory in which all diseases, treatment methods and cures are entered, retrieved and analyzed according to their chances of success. We want health insurance for general accidents and illnesses, for immortality and for addictive substances, as well as publicly negotiated fees for doctors. We want doctors who are authorized as conventional or alternative healers, following an examination and whose treatment success is continuously monitored. We want all drugs to be legal, to be subject to a purity law and to pay a health insurance premium to treat consumption-related complaints. We only want to authorize products that are harmless to health, biodegradable or harmless to dispose of, recyclable or reusable. We want to report environmental pollution in a directory, organize its removal and make polluters pay for it. We want to reverse climate change through innovations in agriculture and infrastructure that deliver the same performance at lower cost and without pollution. We want to replace finite raw materials in future with a circular economy that uses genetic engineering and naturally degradable nutrient solutions to grow all kinds of goods.
Follow this channel so you don't miss future videos. If you want to know more, read the non-fiction book Handover of Power or the novel Life in the New World. Have you been stuck in a traffic jam this week? Or was your train late? The traffic turnaround hasn't made any progress for years. Charging stations are now being set up for electric cars and power lines are being laid, even though there are filling stations. What will happen to these filling stations when we are all driving electric cars? And how long does an electric car even last? Your cell phone will give you the answer. The battery is broken after 2 years and you can't change it. It's the same with an electric car. Do you want to throw it away after a few years? It's not sustainable to produce so much electronic waste. But is the train a better way to get around? For people who have too much money and time, maybe. Traveling by public transport often takes longer than by car. Delays are the order of the day, and sometimes they are even cancelled. Is that supposed to be progress? Getting around more slowly in the future? If I compare the price of a train ticket with a tank of gas, then filling up is still cheaper. The government's solution is simply to make refueling more and more expensive. Is that supposed to be progress? Having to spend more and more money to be mobile in the future? And what about the energy transition? Renewable energies provide cheap electricity, but the government is making it as expensive as electricity from coal, gas and uranium. It is an insane regulation on the electricity exchange that the most expensive electricity sets the price for everyone. Let's move on to waste. The industry produces packaging that we throw away immediately after consumption, even though it lasts 20,000 years. A lot of waste ends up in our waterways because the sewage treatment plants can't filter it, and so it ends up in your drinking water. This is how the industry pollutes our nature and enriches itself because it doesn't have to bear the disposal costs. Our children are paying the bill with a world in which it is becoming increasingly difficult to survive. When it comes to infrastructure, there is no getting around the issue housing. Would you like to live in your own home but can't afford it? Or can't find an apartment to live in? Living with your parents? Living in too small space? Turning down a job because you can't find a place to stay? Are you perhaps facing this dilemma right now? Because you had to give notice after the last rent increase? I don't want to start with the poor traffic routes and slow pipes. The list is long enough. It's time to act. You will get some suggestions in the next video. Take a look at it and read the book Handover of Power, especially the volume Infrastructure, or my novel Life in the New World, and build the world the way you like it. Our infrastructure. We want to involve citizens democratically in urban planning and digitize land registers in a directory where properties can be simulated, found and traded. We want to build residential areas with a state construction team until everyone has their own home, and complete state construction projects as quickly and cheaply as possible. We want recreational areas for people to exercise and relax, as well as bathing lakes with adjustable water levels to protect against flooding and droughts. We want state-owned utilities to take care of the supply of transport arteries, drinking water, electricity, data and gas, as well as the disposal of pollution, wastewater and rubbish. We want producers and disposal companies that make waste valuable in a circular economy or price in the disposal costs of products. We want to transport goods, data, electricity and water in underground networks and operate pumped storage power plants thanks to the natural gradient between the coast and the mountains. We want to shift long-distance passenger transport to the air and to maglev trains, and local transport to public transport, bicycles and carpools. We want to generate energy both
centrally from the moon and the sun, as well as decentrally in existing buildings and store it in water, salt, zeolite, hydrogen and compressed air.
Follow this channel so you don't miss future videos. If you want to know more, read the non-fiction book Handover of Power or the novel Life in the New World. Do you still feel safe in this country? Do you let your children play outside alone? No? Oh. And do you forbid them to do so instead? And imagine, as a woman, do you like going out alone at night? No? Do you prefer to stay at home or take a cab instead? That's like a prison in which potential victims lock themselves up as a precaution. Is that fair? I think perpetrators should be locked up and not the victims. But do the police have enough time for that? Police officers waste their time after soccer matches or with drug dealers or protecting incompetent politicians. But with better laws, there would be no need for the police at all. And when the police do use their weapons, there is a lot of shouting because the weapons are simply too deadly. In the World Wide Web, the police come up against national borders that make prosecution impossible. That means for the citizen, protect yourself. Otherwise, no one will protect you. And that's why virus programs and private security services are booming. A private security service may even have more employees than the police or the army. Do you feel safe when the shareholders can decide whether you are worth protecting? I'm telling you, war is a great business. Expensive weapons kill, scare, and give power. It's easier to expropriate the dead, or rather cause flight and displacement so that cheap labor is available. And if you manage to play off countries against each other, then that's easy money. Security is not just about crime and war, but also about safety. Who else do you know in the fire department? How quickly can the ambulance get there? And who will help you in disaster? After every flood, after every storm, a politician comes and looks at the misery, compassion, a lack of planning. But the cleanup and reconstruction work is always the same. But anyone who has never stood in the mud and had to help thinks a little money heals all wounds. Want to play it safe? Check out the suggestions in the next video, or in the volume Security, or in the novel Life in the New World. This won't scare you, but give you hope.
Our security. We want security forces that can be called upon by citizens to help them in real and digital form, and to document their deployments digitally in a directory. We want a democratically agreed emergency plan that is practiced in advance with the population in order to prevent the fear of an uncertain future in the event of a disaster. We want subsidized volunteer or full-time rescue services, fire brigades, water rescue services, and technical relief organizations. We want a People's Protection Service consisting of soldiers, public servants, and volunteers, which can be appointed by citizens by quorum or by companies via payment. We want a police force that mostly carries non-lethal weapons, goes on patrol with the People's Protection Service, investigates criminal cases undercover, defends against cyber attacks, and carries out urban raids when crime is too high. We want weapons that are only produced domestically for domestic use, and that citizens are only allowed to buy and keep them in police stations. We want demonstrations that are protected by the People's Protection Service on the roads and accompanied by a mobile studio of the government television. We want to avoid terrorism by allowing foreign peoples to decide for themselves and giving minorities inland the opportunity to participate or confine themselves. We want customs to control the borders, enforce entry bans, deportations, customs duties, and import or export restrictions, and search for unpaid taxes. We want military equipment and personnel that contribute to the prosperity of the population in peacetime and are deployed democratically in the event of war. We want a defense army for the whole continent and, in the long term, only defense facilities against threats from space.
Follow this channel so you don't miss future videos. If you want to know more, read the non-fiction book Handover of Power or the novel Life in the New World. Have you ever had to go to court? Have you experienced how expensive it is? And how long such proceedings take? That's why the rich are more likely to get justice. And do you know the saying, in court and on the high seas we are in God's hands? That means you are helplessly at the mercy of a higher power. Judges who find your opponent more likable than you, who have already had lunch with his lawyer, or who keep postponing your case. You are powerless against them. They don't lose their job after a bad judgment. They call themselves independent. But they are only human and make mistakes. They just don't have to learn from them. And do you call the police with a good conscience? Or are you afraid of a complaint because the perpetrator will then get your address? And then you dare. But the police have to let him go again. Because our courts say, that wasn't bad enough. He will get probation. He's not that mentally stable. You have to be considerate of him. Offenders get probation. Victims get life imprisonment. And when offenders go to prison, they cost the taxpayer a lot of money, harm society even more, and often remain criminals because they are only surrounded by criminals. Politicians make laws that hardly anyone understands. You can't get very far without a lawyer. Is that fair? And if you then discover a law that is long outdated or doesn't fulfill its purpose, then there is nothing you can do except appeal to the highest court. Is this what democracy looks like? Write in the comments what injustice has already been done to you. If you don't want to just stand by and watch injustice in the future, take a look at suggestions for more justice as a non-fiction book in the Justice volume, as a novel with the name Life in the New World, or in the next video.
Our justice. We want a democratic constitutional state in which citizens can evaluate, change, or abolish laws or judgments, elect their judges directly, and be appointed as lay judges. We want public court hearings that take place in digital arbitration tribunals, municipal courts, 18 remit courts, the National Court, and the Constitutional Court. We want appropriate criminal laws that prevent good things from having to be banned just because there are bad people who behave unlawfully. We want to finance proceedings in criminal and constitutional law through value-added taxes, and in civil and state law after the judgment through the losers or insurance companies. We want sentences that are based on the value of the offense, not suspended but enforced as fines, community service, or imprisonment. We want a prison system that compensates victims, accommodates offenders in mobile, digitalized individual cells, re-socializes them through work and therapy, and generates revenue for the state budget.
Follow this channel so you don't miss future videos. If you want to know more, read the non-fiction book Handover of Power or the novel Life in the New World. Do you have the feeling that there is more and more war in the world? Are you afraid that you and your children could one day be affected? Anarchy reigns worldwide. That means everyone can do what they want. There are no laws. Wait, there are no man-made laws. The law of nature still applies, of course. And that brings us to the problem. The law of the jungle applies. The rule of the strongest. Do you also have the feeling that countries behave like lawless animals? They attack each other to expand their territory. Whoever wins gets to decide everything there. Trillions are spent on the military, so just that one country can invade the other and exploit it. Criminals only need to flee across the border and they are safe. There is no police force or court for the whole world. Interpol can only be used in a few states that have given their prior consent. The International Court of Justice, however, can only catch perpetrators who travel to a country that arrests them. The United Nations? They can only plead and beg. Those who don't comply have nothing to fear. In the end, the only thing that counts is who can win the war. So much for the law of nature. But with people, whoever has the most money also counts. Internationally, the law of the richest applies. Governments can be bought through national debt. Companies can be bought through shares. And trade unions can be disempowered by relocating, of course, only to poorer countries with lower rights for employees. And do you think things would be completely different in the European Union? Far from it. The European Union is really good at it. Heads of government and ministers play parliamentarians there. Government posts in the European Union are Commission President and Council President. they are appointed in secret. Not a trace of democracy. Only appearances are kept up with the European elections. But if you take a closer look, you can see that no state power emanates from this parliament. It shares legislative power with the European Union Council of Ministers, the Committee of the Regions, the European Economic and Social Committee, and the European Commission, none of whose members have ever been elected at the European elections. This is how European law is created, which in case of doubt can break the laws in your country. And elections for parliament actually also have the function of producing governments with ministers who then run the state authorities. This is called executive power. I don't know when the gentlemen in Brussels will notice. Enough European democratic deficits for today. The decisive factor is that citizens are being played off against each other in the European Union. Poorer countries in the East should remain poor so that cheap production can take place there. European trade unions, not applicable. European minimum wage, not applicable. European standards for farmers, teachers, etc., not applicable. And by European, I don't mean similar across Europe, but the same across Europe. Why has so little happened in the last 70 years? So, we can see that the United Nations and the European Union, which uphold international law, are not at all democratic because their parliaments are rather made up of government representatives or diplomats who receive instructions from them. The opposition is not represented in these forms at all. And secondly, the world's population has never voted on this international law. This is just to make people believe that something would be done for them. We don't know who is doing what. The agreements are made in secret. And have you ever asked yourself why there are still so many developing countries, despite all the development aid? This money has been flowing for decades. Unfortunately, every country and thousands of organizations do their own thing. Worst of all countries do a little bit everywhere at the same time. Unfortunately, it gets even worse. The industrialized countries buy things in their country and send them to the developing country as development aid, so that the developing country then has to buy spare parts from the industrialized country, becomes dependent, and the profits always remain in the industrialized country. So the poor stay poor and the rich get richer. Now you know also where the causes of flight come from. But what happens to the refugees is even worse. Because there is misery in their home countries, and they know the corporations in the industrialized countries, they believe they will get rich there too. So they set off. Only the strongest survive this dangerous journey. And these are precisely the people the industry wants. After all, the industrialized countries have made their own populations unhappy, poorly paid, run down schools, and destroyed family businesses. It's obvious that people don't want to have any more children in these conditions, isn't it? If a country is dependent on immigration, it cannot make its own population happy. That's the truth that nobody wants to say. And that's why immigration has nothing to do with charity, but with greed. If you are looking for a foreign policy that prevents wars, develops countries, and avoid the causes of flight, then watch the next video and read the book Handover of Power, especially the volume Foreign Affairs, or my novel Life in the New World. Be a part of it. Let's stay together.
Our foreign affairs. We want to standardize laws across the continent and worldwide, jointly administer authorities and ministries, and unite states as soon as the majority of people are prepared to do so. We want to bring together culturally similar populations in continental federal states until they are reconciled in a global federal state with a common constitution. We want to dynamically democratize the European Union through direct elections and the restructuring of the institutions into 18 ministries, councils, and committees. We want to democratize international organizations and allow the people to vote on international law and intergovernmental agreements. We want to develop underdeveloped countries one by one through education and infrastructure so that the people there can help themselves. We want to handle asylum application procedures through the embassies in the countries of origin and organize fast and favorable entry for approved asylum seekers. We want to reduce cross-border exploitation and crime, build the United States of the world, and then abolish the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Follow this channel so you don't miss future videos. If you want to know more, read the non-fiction book Handover of Power or the novel Life in the New World. Do you know your neighbors? Do you understand their language? The anonymity of the big city and the gossip in the village are poison for our coexistence. If you are looking for a place to live, then you choose one where you love the country and its people, do you? Or do you say, oh yes, in my home country, everyone should do what I don't like and speak a language I don't understand, so that I can argue all the time because of misunderstandings. Nobody wants that. And yet, it's becoming more and more like that in this world. Are you happy with the policy on foreigners? Or do you have the feeling that there's a clash of cultures going on? The truth is that locals and immigrants are being played off against each other. The argument of accepting refugees out of charity is pure hypocrisy. Immigrants and those who oppose them are actually in the same boat. Immigration is only permitted so that unemployment can continue. If fewer children are born than old people die, there will inevitably be full employment. And then, suddenly, employees have more power than employers. That means higher wages and better working conditions. But of course, that puts pressure on profits, and the richest investors in the world don't want that at all. They would rather see hunger and war, displacement, exploitation, and pollution, so that modern human trafficking can continue to provide a supply of unemployed people fighting over what little prosperity there is. Employers and the state benefit from this. Employers can pay lower wages because there is always someone who needs it more. The state makes more money because more people in the country means more tax revenue. The corporations don't give a damn about peaceful civil society. They are in thrall to their shareholders, and they want their dividends to increase every year. Otherwise, they will sell their shares. After working on the stock exchange, I could understand the wishes of analysts and stock market traders. We prefer young, male, poor, stupid, and culturally diverse immigrants. They should be young so that they can work for a long time. They should be male so that they don't get children. They should be poor so that they accept low wages. They should be stupid so that they don't know their labor rights. And they should be culturally different so that they don't get on with the locals and set up works councils together. And the best thing for employers is when immigrants are actually skilled workers, but their qualifications are not recognized. Jackpot! Build an expensive product and get a pittance. This margin makes every dividend worth its weight in gold. Now look at who survives the dangerous journey to the industrialized nations. Anyone who wants to tell me that they are so social if they are pro-immigration, I say, you are a capitalist. Who pays for unemployment insurance? Who pays taxes on wages and contributions to our insurances for health, long-term care and pension? That's right, it's the workers, regardless of whether they are nationals or foreigners. The very people who suffer from low wages and high non-wage labor costs. They cannot automate. They cannot relocate to poorer countries. They have no leverage to withdraw their savings from this country to a tax haven and thus cause a national bankruptcy. Stop allowing yourselves to be set against each other, please. And then there are the racists among us. Put the border fences up and let everyone keep to themselves. Only money and goods have freedom of movement. The best thing is that everyone within the borders looks the same and nobody understands the other language. That only leads to war, misunderstandings and violence, especially if someone gets megalomaniac and wants to conquer land. Borders are really important to show when you can't go any further. But borders are pointless if your dead grandfather is still dictating them to you. If you want to finally live in peace with your neighbors and the peoples of this world, take a look at the suggestions for a peaceful global integration policy in the next video, or in the volume Integration from the non-fiction book Handover of Power, and especially in the novel Life in the New World. Let's be together and not be divided. Our integration. We want to democratically harmonize the pace of integration of natives and immigrants
by means of local and statewide foreigner quotas or targets. We want cultural protection areas that give all minorities and extreme subcultures the opportunity to voluntarily segregate themselves and pass localized laws. We want to separate church and state and force religious communities to abide by domestic law and to preach or pray in the national language. We want to determine the size of the population by the birth rate of women and votes with men, and let foreign women immigrate or foreigners emigrate. We want to grant national citizenship to children of national parents and not allow any other nationalities apart from the national citizenship. We only want immigration out of love for the country and its people, so that no criminal offenses have been committed, savings are available, dependents can be provided for, and entry fees to the economy can be paid. We want to ban immigration until full employment is achieved, issue residence permits for a maximum of 10 years, and only allow permanent residence for naturalized citizens. We want naturalization through a test of the necessary language and school knowledge, as well as a 10-year discovery phase of friends, clubs, and voluntary positions. We want initial reception centers for asylum seekers in social villages and accommodation only for asylum seekers who speak the same language and come from the same region. We want asylum seekers to practice house building and self-sufficiency by building an asylum village modeled on a social village, running it and selling it to nationals after asylum. We want to employ and feed host families who take in asylum seekers seeking naturalization until the naturalization process is complete. We want foreigners to leave the country if they are in debt, or if the foreigner quota is exceeded or unemployment rises above 1%. We want the deportation of foreign offenders after they have served their sentence, and, if they are minors, the deportation of their entire family. Follow this channel so you don't miss future videos. If you want to know more, read the non-fiction book Handover of Power or the novel Life in the New World.
Have you ever felt sexually harassed? Or didn't know how to approach someone you found attractive? There are many women who are annoyed by pickup lines. At the same time, there are many men who don't know how to approach a woman. There are penalties for sexual harassment, but no legal ways to express whether you want love or sex from someone. The whole subject is a huge taboo. People are not supposed to talk openly about their feelings and urges. What does that do to us? It's considered immoral, disgusting, perverse. Why is it like that? We were all created that way. We are all living proof that our parents had sex. Some are proof that their parents had sex out of love because they had married beforehand. Others are proof that their parents had sex for pleasure because their parents weren't actually a couple. What's so bad about that? Why can't we talk about it openly? Politicians are making it even more difficult for us, with a sexual criminal law that leaves it unclear what is really allowed. It can't be that in this day and age we still have to be afraid to name our feelings for love or sex. But you see and hear hate and violence everywhere. I ask you quite frankly, which is better, love or hate, sex or violence? Politicians promote the world we live in with their bans. And our children, do they have rights? Not a chance. If you look in the penal code, you will find child abuse, But if you ask parents what is allowed, what helps when the child screams, argues, lies, beats, great cluelessness. If you ask children what they are allowed to do, then you will get all sorts of different rules from their parents, educators, teachers. What does it do to a child if someone is allowed to do something and the other is not? At the beginning of our lives, we learn injustice, being in the mercy of others, not having a say, not questioning. Is that a good thing? Is that what responsible citizens look like? I think this is how we raise fascists who are in bondage to their leader or resigned rebels. And when the children get older, they have even more duties and can be punished themselves then. Where you go when you're too old for the playground, where to go when you meet the first love of your life, where to go when you want to fly away from your parents to be with friends, on the street, in the woods, like homeless people who are driven out everywhere. Again, this feeling of helplessness, powerlessness, authority. The right of the older person to forbid you to do things, to deny you your right to vote. You're still too young for that. You are still too stupid for that. Who decides that and why? End of discussion. And when you're old, you'll be lonely. You've worked, started a family, and many of your children and grandchildren have had to move away, finding work, finding a place to study, finding affordable housing. And you? Your friends have died, your partner is a care case. Every now and then someone comes by from the care service and the stopwatch is ticking. Unfortunately, we don't have any more time. And there may come the time when you get tired of living like this, so you'd rather die. But you're not allowed to, because your life doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the state. And they want to make money from you in a psychiatric ward or in intensive care. The main thing is that you are still consumed, no matter how. If you want your life to belong to you from the beginning to the end, then use the time you have left here on earth. Become active. Read the book Handover of Power, especially the volume Family, or my novel Life in the New World, and watch the next video. It will give you hope for a better future.
Our family. We want laws for moral interaction with one another and for equality and democratization in all institutions that work with children. We want clear rules for finding a partner for love or sex that prevent sexual harassment and individual relationship bases that are notarized at the registry office. We don't want to make marriage dependent on gender or number, but only on caring for each other and for children together. We want state templates for marriage contracts and wills that are valid or can be amended by the parties concerned. We want children to be conceived by mutual consent and, if necessary, through artificial insemination, surrogate mothers, egg or sperm donation. We want a parenting license that prevents child abuse and offers parenting support in role plays and case studies. We want children's rights that describe successful developmental conditions and obligations that prevent harmful consumptions, legal capacity and liability. We want youth centers, children's homes and child benefit so that minors can lead a self-determined life and are offered useful activities. We want subsidized leisure activities through art, drama, music and sport, as well as playgrounds and clubs for all ages. We want legal suicide after psychological, legal and medical counseling in order to protect bystanders, doers and the bereaved. We want the burial of corpses in cemeteries and cremated remains in all places where no one is harmed.
Follow this channel so you don't miss future videos. If you want to know more, read the non-fiction book Handover of Power or the novel Life in the New World.